California's new workplace violence prevention law requires most employers to have an effective workplace violence prevention program in place by July 1st. In this video, I'll go over 10 questions that employers must answer in order to assess workplace violence risks. The information from these answers can help you to create an effective workplace violence prevention plan specific to your workplace violence hazards. These questions are designed to help assess your employees' risk to workplace violence based upon the 4 types of workplace violence sources identified by California in its new law. Hi, I'm Mike Corwin. I help employers implement an effective workplace violence prevention program that keeps employees safer and complies with the requirements of California's new workplace violence prevention law. My personal approach to preventing workplace violence is based upon what I learned during my 30-plus years of working as a civil and criminal litigation investigator, where I investigated many work-related violence incidents and to keep myself safe from violence while working in some very dangerous places. California requires employers to have a workplace violence prevention program in place by July 1, 2024. I've got a great tool to help you get started developing your prevention program. It's my free workplace violence prevention checklist. It's a roadmap that you can follow as you develop a workplace violence prevention plan. Just click in the link in the description below. Question number 1, where do your employees work? Do your employees work at one location or several? Do they work on site or out in the community or at a client's home or business? Assessing work locations is critical to helping you understand where the safety hazards your employees face are coming from and how their work locations can put them at greater risk to violence. And they can help you to identify ways to lessen those risks. Employees that work in the community can face an increased safety risk due to greater interactions with the public. This is especially true in areas of higher levels of community violence. They also face an increased risk when working at a client's location due to a lack of control over the environment and the people within that environment. Employees who work at one location only may have a lower safety risk from the public, but can have an increased risk from targeted violence from clients or their families and from former intimate partners due to working at a known location. Understanding the link between work locations and the types and sources of safety threats is a critical starting point for you developing your workplace violence prevention program. Question number 2, who do your employees interact with during a typical workday? Another starting point for creating an effective workplace violence prevention program is assessing who your employees interact with during a typical workday. For example, legal service professionals deal not only with clients, but their clients' families, friends, and with witnesses too. Medical professionals deal with patients and often their families, and professionals in both of these fields often are dealing with stressful situations that can increase reactivity and the likelihood of a violent incident. Those who work in manufacturing or in a warehouse setting primarily interact with coworkers, supervisors, and managers. Interpersonal dynamics can lead to violence when not properly addressed. Restaurant and retail employees interact with the general public, which can lead to conflict, as can interactions with coworkers and managers. Question number 3, do your employees meet one-on-one with clients, patients, or others? Service providers and others must often meet one-on-one with clients, patients, or others as part of their work. Employees meeting in isolation with a client or another individual can face a greater safety threat. Employers need to assess safety risks from the location where these one-on-one meetings occur so that safety training can be tailored to keep employees safe in those specific settings. One-on-one meetings at your primary workplace can be made safer by ensuring that your employees cannot be physically trapped by the person they're meeting with and unable to exit the location safely if an incident occurs. In case of meeting with clients or patients at their homes or workplace in a one-on-one setting, training can be provided to your employees to better assess the safety risks at that specific location and then to proactively implement safety practices in order to keep themselves safe. Question number 4, do your employees handle cash? Workplace violence connected to criminal activity like robberies is the most obvious source of workplace violence, especially in the retail, food service, and financial industries. If your employees handle cash, safety training can be done for those working inside the establishment, as well as providing some additional training for those who open and close the establishment where the risk of robbery is at its greatest. Question 5. Do you have a formal complaint process for employees? How many times have you heard of a significant workplace violence incident where the media reports that complaints of bullying, harassment, or threats by coworkers went unaddressed by the employer? I bet it's a lot. The complaint process matters. California requires employers to develop an effective complaint process that employees feel comfortable using. Without a formal complaint process, complaints can fall through the cracks or can be ignored. So you must assess your current complaint process and ensure that it is standardized with specific steps for your employees to follow. Employees should receive written directives as to who complaints should be brought to and what information should be submitted when they're bringing forward a complaint of harassment, bullying, threats, or violence. Your complaint process must also protect those bringing a complaint from retaliation for doing so. Question number 6. Do you have a formal investigation process for employee complaints? It's not enough for employers to receive a complaint. They must act on that complaint too. The goal being to determine if the complaint has merit. An effective investigation process is the best way to develop accurate information and to make a determination about the complaint. For the investigation process to be trusted, it must be standardized so that each and every complaint is investigated in the same manner. You should designate the person responsible for conducting the investigation and how the investigation process should be carried out and determinations made. Question number 7. Where do your employees park? Employee safety is not always the main concern when it comes to where employees park, but it should be. The FBI has identified parking lots and parking garages as the third most common location for murders and assaults. Reducing the risk of workplace violence requires assessing employee parking, including looking at lighting, obstructions, and obstacles that can interrupt movement. Does the parking lot make it easier for someone such as a former intimate partner to find and target your employee? It's important to look at things that can obstruct an employee's visibility, including lighting and obstructions, as well as access to walkways and traffic flow. Regardless of whether employees park in parking lots or out on the street, employers must also assess how employees get from their parking place to their work location and what the safety risks are between those two places. Question number 8. Do you have a communication process that helps employees notify others of a safety risk? There's safety in numbers. Assessing communication methods that employees facing a safety risk can use to alert others should be part of your prevention planning. Front desk staff and retail staff should be able to report safety concerns during an encounter without tipping off the person creating the safety risk. Using wireless buzzers to flash once for help and twice to call 911, and implementing the use of a specific password that signifies a concern about safety are ways to improve communication options. Employees working in the community in higher risk areas should be able to call or radio directly to one or two specific people without having to go through voicemail. Question number 9. Are your employees trained in strategies to avoid physical harm from workplace violence? California requires that employees know how to avoid physical harm from a potentially violent incident. So it's important to assess what types of training you're providing to your employees to help them avoid physical harm. There are 3 main strategies for avoiding physical harm. Avoiding safety threats through implementing situational awareness, de-escalating a tense situation before it spirals into violence, self-defense when avoidance and de-escalation are not possible. These strategies can be implemented for employees that work on site and for employees that work in the community. Question number 10, is your physical environment increasing or decreasing safety risks? The physical work environment can increase or decrease employee vulnerability to workplace violence safety hazards. Things to assess include lighting, ease of public access to employees and the workplace, interior space layout, outdoor obstructions, and personal work areas. Also, look at entry and exit points, foot and vehicle traffic areas, the ability to recognize potential safety threats before they turn into safety threats as part of your prevention program. Identifying physical environment safety risks so that they can be corrected, and training provided to employees so that they better understand the role of physical environment and how it interacts with their safety is and should be part of your workplace violence prevention program, as that will keep your staff safer and comply with California's new workplace violence prevention requirements. Want to get started on developing the required workplace violence prevention program by July 1, 2024 deadline? Download my free workplace violence prevention checklist. It's a great roadmap for you to follow as you develop a workplace violence prevention plan. Just click on the link in the description below.